First on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance by Ms. Susan Epps.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. We're going to have a moment of silence. Okay, thank you so much. So, do we have any questions on the consent agenda? Anything that needs to be pulled out or discussion? No visitors tonight? Okay, that's a good thing. Spotlight and recognition is going to be Thursday.
Spotlight will be Thursday and recognition. Yep.
So first up, number 10.
All right, number 10, Human Resources, tab 2. So I'm going to read this and then talk a little bit about it first. So this is a Human Resources ancillary resolution. So whereas the Rutherford County Board of Education desires to continue providing voluntary plans for the employees of the Rutherford County Schools for the calendar year of 2024, and whereas the Standard and MetLife have been identified as the preferred providers for the voluntary plans, specifically group life, voluntary life, short-term disability, long-term disability, cancer, accident, and critical illness. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education approves staying with the Standard and MetLife their respective voluntary plans for the calendar year of 2024 with the same benefits and rates, and be it further resolved that the county government will administer their portion of the plans and the Board of Education will administer their portion of the plans. Now let me give you some background. All right, so of course, background, we as a school system, our school board, voted to go with the state plan last school year, which has been a benefit to our employees. We are still with ancillary products with risk management or Rutherford County government. We actually took on all those responsibilities ourselves, even though that was not our agreement in January. So Dr. Anthony and her team have taken all of that to make sure our employees got the service they needed. We are in the process still of debating which way is best for us. As a school system, we have benefits in staying with the county. There's a benefit for keeping the current rates. There's a benefit for continuity of, almost threw out my word there, my instruction team almost said continuity. I made that word up 3 years ago and I just almost made it up again. So some continuity with our current providers. However, we are also interested in looking to see about bidding this out ourselves, or the possibility of bidding this out ourselves. When you are looking at this from a holistic perspective, so of course we have a good relationship with the county commission, our local REA, our insurance, and our HR, and Brian with finance. The long story short is we used to have 3 voting members of the county insurance team. As of last Thursday, we are now down to 1. And so in looking at that and seeing the makeup, I just would ask that we take another month to look at this to make sure that this is truly what's best for our employees, since we may not have the votes that would be needed on that insurance committee any longer. So I still, again, think this is going to be the best move, but I want to be more confident in that moving forward. Happy to answer any questions. I know Dr. Anthony can.
So you want a motion to postpone this until April? Is that what you're asking for?
Yes, and with spring break being there, I would suggest April 18th and 20th being the appropriate time.
I make a motion that we postpone this vote until April 20th?
Well, you can do that at the board meeting on Thursday.
Yes. Wait, I just wanted to practice.
I like that you're proactive.
Good practice.
Thank you for being proactive.
Dr. Anthony, Brian, anything you want to add to that?
April what?
18th and
18th and
I
20th.
don't want to mess it up on Thursday night.
Okay, next, number 2, substitute teachers.
All right, so number 2, substitute teacher services bid RFP. And so we had 5 different people that applied for the RFP for our substitute teacher services. We are recommending approval to move back to Advantage XPO for both Murfreesboro and Smyrna Laverne. We tried 2 vendors this year. 2 had some strengths, but it also had some weaknesses. When you have 2 vendors, you can see the strengths and weaknesses of both of them at one time. And so we've had some billing inconsistencies with both of them that's had definitely some headaches. Our fill rates aren't the same. And we had a committee that actually ranked all of these. They were first. Do you have the rankings with you, Dr. Anthony, by chance?
Those who served on the committee, I wanted to give them kudos. We had a principal from each grade band, Dr. Holman from the middle school, Ms. Dana Nichols from the elementary school, and Mr. Larry Creasy from the high school level, as well as 2 members from HR and 2 members from Brian's team in budget and finance. And the ranking for number 1 was Advantage, number 2, Kelly Staffing, and number 3, Staff EZ. Those 3 made the top. And if you remember, we had Staff EZ in the past. They at one time were PESG formerly.
And if you want to look at the individual bids, those are as well. The RFP bids are in tab 2.
Any questions? I think in theory, it was,
It was a great idea in theory.
because we are still trying to do everything we can to put teachers in the classroom.
Yep.
Permanently and temporarily.
So I have a question. So moving this from 2 different services to 1 service, this is going to give us a little bit more pool of applicants for the north end side, because I understand that the north end is really the area that we have the most trouble trying to get substitute teachers. And even today, when I was at the Title I planning meeting for Laverne High School, they're still struggling trying to find substitute teachers up there. The challenge of competing with a neighboring county, Davidson County, is not going to change. That's still going to be an issue. So my question to you, Dr. Sullivan, is if we're moving this to align both, is this helping us by giving these jobs to be open to more applicants, meaning they're now from the south end are going to see it, in hopes that they will take these jobs and hopefully make that drive up to the north end? Is this the thought process that we're wanting to move in this direction?
Yes, it is. And we had more success when we had 1 vendor. So we've used 1 vendor in the past. We were hoping moving to 2 would address some of those needs on the north end, and it didn't. And so this would open it up. Where we're going to have our headache is that we had people who were with Advantage XPO when we were just 1 vendor. They had to apply and go through the orientation process with our current vendor. Now, when we go back to Advantage XPO, they're going to have to do it again, unless they're still. So that is going to be a headache.
Okay, and then my other question is, it was a twofold question, is the regular base pay, because I know when we were in 2 different services, one service had the substitute base pay rate a little bit higher than the other. So if we go to 1, is it going to align that pay? And if we find ourselves in a situation we're still not getting those positions filled, particularly in the north end, what are the solutions or options the company has provided, if that was even mentioned or brought up to them? Because those are current issues right now.
And John, we're good because I'm going to be showing some other stuff too, so I'm just running it from here.
Yes, Ms. Rosales, the pay will remain the same, that if they're in the northern end, the pay for the day is higher, as you can see from the chart on the tab. So also, they will have a larger pool, to answer your first question, so that right now, anybody that's applying for and needing a sub is only able to see the vendor we have in the north end. So as a bigger hub, they're going to have some more possibilities. Last semester's average was for the north end was running about 47% for the first semester, so we have a much higher fill rate through our southern end. So we're hoping that bigger pool, as well as the increase in pay for the northern end, will make that up. Every RFP that we do when we award the contract, it's for 1-year term and renewable for 2 additional. and so that we also meet mid-year to see what additional items they can do to help recruit and keep their subs. So we'll have additional information to make a determination. Do we need to go out again to see what the market gives us next year, or if this is something that we'll make a recommendation with our committee input for the spring?
Okay, well, thank you.
And we've also talked about, we just don't think it's something we can pull off this year, potentially bringing it in-house at some point as well.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
The potential of bringing certified, or bringing substitutes in-house, that would have some logistical issues, and it would be an extra cost in staffing, so it wasn't something we were comfortable doing this year.
Okay.
But we did discuss it.
Dr. Anthony, you're still having issues with the fingerprinting? Are they reporting issues with fingerprinting?
Right now, we still are limited. They have not expanded, and of course, I think we spoke earlier that they did close the Merciful store, so we're down to one place, and then it's on a rotation basis in the other counties. And to our knowledge, we have not been told that the vendor has changed. This was their year to make a decision at the TBI level.
Thank you. Number 11.
All right, number 11, ESL High School Enrollment Facilitator, so tab 3. So RCS has experienced tremendous growth in our high school immigrant student population. These students have unique challenges, and the ESL department is requesting a high school enrollment facilitator to support these students throughout their high school years. Many of the high school immigrants have interrupted schooling, and this presents challenges in scheduling students within a time frame for successful graduation. Without an advocate who can create a solid graduation plan and offer a system of support as well as accountability, many will drop out of school. This is funded through Title III funds, so it's not part of our general purpose. And I emailed the board as well today and our principals, so we have our ESL coordinator, Ms. Nona Hall, who's retiring June 30th, and so we thank her for years of service, and we'll be looking for an ESL coordinator as well.
What would be your ideal candidate for this?
Someone who, Kelly, do you want to address that? I mean, I can answer it, yeah.
For this position or the coordinator position?
This
Not coordinator.
position.
I meant facilitator. I'm so sorry. Yes, at the schools. And I'm assuming you're putting one at each of our high schools?
We're looking
one
for
in
one
general.
at the Welcome Center currently.
Okay.
And as we kind of discussed earlier, when you have students that are coming from various locations where their education has been interrupted, so that's a lot of refugee students or students without formal education, then as they come into our system, a lot of times without paperwork of any kind, and it's hard to navigate that we're on different schedules. So their schooling is hard to get records, and it creates a backlog with our counselors. So when our counselors are trying to enroll the students, it's difficult to know what credits they lack or if they have any credits at all. And then once they get into school, it's hard to keep track of them and the different needs that they may have based on what they come to us with. So this person really, the primary need is to assist our counselors with just the paperwork portion, to talk with families. So ideally, this would be somebody that was at least bilingual. We talked about
They don't necessarily have to have like an education degree or anything like that. Maybe like
I think if you're
social
asking
worker
for an ideal candidate would be somebody that had some sort of high school counseling experience or graduation coach experience or something dealing with credits, so they understood credits. And then it would be somebody that could communicate with families. That doesn't have to be somebody that speaks all languages, obviously, but somebody that can be patient to understand the process, that when students come to us without any paperwork at all, that they can help them navigate that.
So Dr. Chastain, if we had someone who was a teacher and maybe not certified, but could we certify them through our Grow Your Own? Would they have to be certified?
I think the way this position is written, if I'm not mistaken, that we do have this as a certified position.
Yeah, you'll see the job descriptions on tab 3. I just clicked to it. So the way we have it currently, because this position doesn't exist, we have it currently described as holds a valid Tennessee teaching license with ESL endorsement, minimum of a master's, and successful teaching experience with 5 years as an ESL teacher. But if we don't find candidates, then it is not uncommon that we bring it back before the board and ask for a modification of the job description.
I would also hope that this position would be successful and that we could maybe scale that, because we do have an increasing need.
Where is this person going to start at? Is it going to be in Laverne or Smyrna High, or
When Ms. Hall and I talked about this particular position, we were thinking either at the Welcome Center, which is kind of that hub where it's probably the most necessary, but if not there, it would be at probably at one of those high schools that you mentioned, Smyrna or Laverne.
And then if the funds are Title III, is this a one-time expense through Title I funds, or is this going to be rolled into the budget for next year?
Title III, I mean, they can change their allocation to us federally every single year, but we're very conservative with our Title III funds, so barring some type of just absolute removal of federal funds like that has been talked about, this would still be continuing.
Just wondering if it was going to require extra funding
Shouldn't.
later on, but it's always good to know and ask.
Any other questions? Number 12.
All right, number 12, Curriculum Instruction, tab 4, so Textbook Adoption Report ED 5009 and Textbook Certificate of Adoption Report ED 2153. School systems are required to submit textbook adoptions annually on forms provided by the Tennessee Department of Education. The elementary, middle, and high school textbook committees recommended purchasing the math textbook listed below beginning the 23-24 school year and through the 28-29 school years. And so you will see Course K5, textbook title Into Math, HMH, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, Math 6-8, Envision Mathematics, Savas, Algebra 1 Geometry, Algebra 2, Envision Mathematics, Tennessee, Savas, Pre-Calculus, Pre-Calculus Graphical, Numerical, and Algebraic, Savas, Calculus, Calculus Graphical, Numerical, and Algebraic by Savas, Statistics, Statistics and Probability with Applications, Bedford, Freeman, and Worth, AP Calculus, Calculus Graphical, Numerical, and Algebraic, Savas, and then AP Statistics Updated, the Practice of Statistics, Bedford, Freeman, and Worth. And then we have our entire instruction team here that worked on it. So we have, and you want to introduce your team? You can introduce our instruction team. No, they were mine, they're yours now.
Your team too.
I know,
We're
but they're
all
yours
on
now.
team here. So we have.
I miss you guys.
They're still. So I'll start with elementary. The elementary coordinator, Ann Haley, is at a school function in a different city today, so she is not with us, but we have our two math specialists for elementary, the newly Dr. Susan Epps and Dr. Susan Lovelace, so those are our elementary math specialists. And then for middle school team, we have the coordinator, Miss Barbara Powers, and then Miss Melinda Fleischer, who is the middle school math coordinator or specialist. And then our high school team right behind me is Dr. Kay Martin and Dr. Kyle Prince. So they have done a whole lot of work over the past few months. So if you remember, in October, we brought before you a list of people that would serve on the Math Adoption Committee. So if you even back up before that, the state puts out an approved list of books and materials that we can choose from. So the requirement to get on that list is that they have to meet our standards and hit the scope and the breadth of the standards, but have to be Tennessee standard aligned. We are very fortunate in our district to have content specialists that are not only respected in Rutherford County, but are respected statewide. So our math specialists actually served on the state committee as well. So they went through the whole process with the state, got to see the good, bad, and ugly of the books that made it through and didn't make it through, and then brought that same kind of process to our district to make sure that it was objective and that they were just facilitators of the process. So these are truly voted on by those committees that you approved. So per RCS policy, the committees have to have parents, they have to have community members, teachers, principals, instructional coaches, all make up those committees. We have a committee for elementary, we had a committee for middle school, and then we had committees for high school. So each grade band went through a similar process with a lot of meetings, a lot of discussion. Teachers went back and taught the lessons from the various books in their classes, and they all came back and had heated conversations and discussions, and then we voted. So
Very heated conversations.
They get very passionate about their math. So after that entire process, we are here to present to you these voted upon publishers for each of those grade bands, and then you'll see some of the high school is a little bit different. So those are all the books that were on the state, that were up for adoption with the state this year. And as a reminder, the high school, we're also transitioning to the traditional sequence. So this is a great opportunity for us to be adopting new material. So we'll do Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. So that's what you see reflected there. And yeah, we're excited to hopefully have board approval so we can move on with professional development and teachers writing course guides and all the things. So thank you to our team for all that hard work and the teachers that were on the committees.
How much did our teachers get paid to do that?
We paid them in smiles and pizza and thank yous. Yes, so professionalism.
Any comments or questions?
Other part I would like to add to this is, so we do things very well in Rutherford County for this, is that most districts put this in the upcoming school year's budget. And so they truly can't purchase the math adoption until July 1st. We always work a year ahead, so let's say we had an emergency in the budget process, we have a year of textbooks that we're a year ahead. So we're actually able to go ahead and purchase these once they're approved, so that you will hear other districts across the state, when you purchase them July 1st, you a lot of times don't get them back in time to start school. We usually don't have to worry about that because we can go ahead because they're in this year's budget, not next year's.
I want to compliment you for managing to get middle school, Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, Pre-Calculus, and Calculus from the same publisher. I don't know how you did that. I've seen them choose a different book for every single one of these, and there's no continuity. There's no horizontal structure. This is a miracle, and y'all have done I'm telling you, y'all have done a wonderful job. Wonderful.
Truly, this was on the merits of these publishers. So
They must be good.
The committees chose absent of any other influence from other grade bands, so that is a very fortunate thing for our vertical.
And very unusual.
So I think it's really neat that on the state website, you actually have a guide for the Tennessee Public Review site. So you were able to look at the curriculum for Save Us in each one of them. And I went through all of them. And some of the problems was really interesting because they were all relatable to our state, inter-county. And so even though they were using word problems to have real-life applications, they were bringing it to our state. So it felt like they were written uniquely for our county. So I thought that was interesting. So yeah, thank you so much for all the hard work. And you guys did a good job. And sorry, I'm glad that we were able to give you lots of miles and pizza, and you're able to return and come back to work. So thank you.
You also have some parents that I've spoken with in the Title I meetings in the elementary that are glad that you're going back to the regular math.
Well, if you have any, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I also don't want to, so the elementary math standards were just tweaked a little bit, so there hasn't been a complete standard rewrite for the lower grades. So a lot of those sometimes frustrating math concepts still exist. My argument and plea would be that they exist for a reason, and it's to help kids become mathematically brilliant. So that's what I hear from these guys all the time. Is that right? Okay, they can do
You wouldn't be speaking about fourth grade math, would you?
We have some frustration on that side of the table, including Dr. Sullivan with some of those concepts. As you move into high school, it's where we saw a little more of the rewrite and the traditional, and we are bringing back that traditional sequence.
And I want to thank you for that.
So-
That was the one thing that I got when I got on the board. Can you fix math? And I'm like,
Well, we're working
I can
really
fix
hard,
it.
and the kids are doing more than I think any of us would have dreamed kids could do as young as they are. It's phenomenal. So we're hoping to see those results. And to your point, though, about the elementary math, I think, and if you have questions, they're here, but the way that the materials are presented and what we have submitted for adoption, it is very succinct, and they're in modules, so a kid can just take module 1 and work through module 1, and then we'll go to module 2, and I think it'll be a lot easier to build parent supports around that, so they're already thinking about, ways to help educate parents and to bring them into that whole process. So they're working hard.
Can I ask you, the kids that have currently been in integrated 1 and 2, next school year, what does that look like for them?
We're doing just a clean swap. So the standards are all the same. They're just, arranged in the different bundles of standards for those subjects. So with Dr. Prince's guidance, they have created guides for at the conclusion of this year, so after we get through with our EOCs, those teachers are already working on how to front load any possible gaps that would be there for the next year. So if you're in integrated 1 and are going into geometry, they're making sure that those gaps aren't going to exist and persist into algebra 2. So Kyle, is there anything else you would like to add to that?
There were just so many changes in the standards anyways that phasing integrated out almost created more gaps than if we went ahead and switched, and it just made more sense to switch.
Thank you.
Good information. Any more questions, comments? Let's go to
All right.
number 2.
So number 2 is part of the textbook adoption as well. So continue the current science adoption selection. So due to the extension of 2 additional years to the state textbook adoption cycle for science, it's recommended the current science textbooks and digital resources for elementary, middle, and high schools be purchased for 23-24 and 24-25. So you see the courses, the textbook titles, and the publishers. These are who we currently utilize. These were last adopted, was it 2018-19? Does that sound right, Kelly, or 2019-20? 18-19 sounds right. They all start to blend together, but the state has pushed back to adoption, and so 2 years the cycle, and so when we purchase them for 6 years or 5 years, so we're out of time, so we need to add 2 additional years until we have a new textbook to choose from, and so that's all this is.
Any questions or comments? Number 13.
Number 13, Facilities and Construction, tab 5, so request for Oakland High addition and renovation bid on Thursday, March 16th, 2023. Purchasing and engineering construction received bids for the site work and construction of the additions and renovations for Oakland High School. All bids have been reviewed in engineering construction. Recommends Robert S. Biskin and Company's base bid plus alternates number 1A through 1D for a total bid of $54,880,000. Engineering recommends motion to approve the request and move forward to Health and Education with a request for funding in the amount of $61,580,000. You'll see the breakdown. Construction of $54,880,000. Construction-related contracts, $1 million. Fixtures, furniture, and equipment, $2 million. Design, $2.2 million. Site, $1.5 million. Total request, again, $61,580,000. And just so that you're aware, kind of the way we go through our whole bid process, we talked about who it all goes to. Ms. Sharp just happened to be here for another meeting, so she got to sit in on watching a bid opening, and they are truly sealed in the public, and they're opened from a sealed document. And so it's interesting to watch both companies or whoever bids on anything see what the other company comes with, and that's unfortunately what they came out with. So Trey, anything you want to add to that?
Other than the 2 bids were less than 1% apart, which is basically the same bid with these numbers. Usually they're anywhere from 3 to 6% spread, but they were less than 1% between the 2 bids.
And were they the same on the Riverdale?
No, ma'am. The prices are different, but the same company
percentage.
got both projects, yes.
Any comments or questions?
Well, it's more than any of us wanted it to be, but it fixes a problem, and I'm happy to see this project through.
I thought I had heard that one of the companies bid it consistently, and they were relatively on the high side, so it kind of aligned with this bid. Is that what one of the companies bid consistently with both of the projects?
Yeah, R.G. Anderson was the high bid for both of them, and their numbers were
They
pretty...
were low at Smyrna.
Yeah.
They were second at Oakland or Riverdale.
So it makes me wonder what the profit on their end, if these bids are coming because they're not really getting much out of the profitability aspect of it because the cost
The size of these projects, the profit's low
Yeah,
for both of
for
them.
both of them.
Yes,
Yeah,
a
so
low profit margin.
low profit margin, and it's because of the inflation,
Well,
for the prices.
most contractors, the size of the job dictates their percentage of profit. The larger the project, the smaller the profit margin, as a general rule. And architects' fees and things like that, they kind of run the same way. The smaller the project, the more their fees are, the larger the project, the percentage decreases because the dollar figure makes the project profit work with larger numbers. If you held a 4% profit on a $100,000 job or $100 million, it's not the same. It's the same percentage, but it's the
same amount.
It's the difference. So typically, the larger the project, the smaller the profit margin.
It's just where we're at right now in the times of
Yeah.
building. There's just, those margins are not lucrative right now, so.
Other thing I would call out is you will see that, so I'm on the tab now, so looking at the electrical contractor, looking at the plumbing contractor, the sprinkler contractor, so their contractors are all the same, regardless of who they're using.
And it was the same way on the, now there's a different group there, but it was the same for the Oakland projects. They both pretty much, there was one difference. Their HVAC contractor was different and their electrical was different, but the others were the same. So there's a limited pool of contractors that do this type of work.
That's what I would like.
And that's another issue.
That's what I wish we could fix, that we could open it up.
Well, it's open to anybody.
Yeah, I know.
Those contractors just don't want to do this kind of work. There's what we call clean work, which is ground up new construction, and then you have work that's renovation addition. And some contractors do both. These guys do both. But there's fewer and fewer contractors that are doing this type of work. If we bid a new school, we would probably have 3 to 5 bidders. But on a projects like this, we have 1 to 2. I don't want to call it good work and bad work, but it's much easier to run a brand new ground up school where you're out in the middle of nowhere, where even if it's in town, you don't have to deal with students, you don't have to deal with traffic, you don't have to deal with parents, you don't have to deal with principals. All those kinds of things. When you do this type of a project, you have all of these other things. So the headache factor goes way up.
Yeah.
And you have someone like me who's chirping a bit.
Trey, do you know what the estimated cost to build a new high school would run?
I would say somewhere between 135 and 145 million.
What would be the capacity on a high school?
If we do what we've been doing in the past, it would be capped at 2,500.
But then it's the land situation. So where is the land to do a new high school? And I don't know if we've got the land right now for high school where it's best suited.
And this is way higher than what the last high school we made.
What, 100, yes, correct.
This is exactly where, when she asked, exactly where I thought you were going to be, because after getting these bids, I was like, okay, so this tells me what a high school would be like.
A new high school would be somewhere around $325 to $350 a square foot in today's market.
Do we have any land currently that would accommodate a high school that we currently own?
We have the Matthews property at Walter Hill. It was purchased for a high school and a middle school. Depending upon which way we went, Plainview, there's property there that for one or the other, middle or high. We have property at Whitworth Buchanan, but I do not think it's large enough for a high school complex. It was originally intended to be that, but with the way high schools have changed since we bought that property, and the facilities that would be needed, I don't think there's enough property there to adequately support a high school.
Not enough acreage?
Not enough acreage, yes, sir.
Would either one, the Matthews or the Plainview property, help with the, would they pull from either Riverdale or Oakland?
It would depend on I'm gonna leave
Yeah,
that to Dr.
that would be Matthews would be rough right now. You'd basically rezone all of Stewart's Creek to Smyrna, Smyrna over there, which you're now taking a traditional Smyrna zone school into Murfreesboro, Walter Hill. So that would be one issue. Plainview, that would be a struggle. Eventually, we're going to need something. I worry what that would turn Riverdale and Oakland into. They very well could strictly become just what you see in other big cities of traditional inner city high schools.
Yeah, they're just not suited in the areas where we're seeing those growth, like in Blackman and Stewart's Creek, or even that area.
In 1972,
Smyrna.
were the edges of the county.
Well, it says, well, on the RSP, that analysis, it says that within 10 years, it says that Riverdale is an area that we will need a high school. So doing addition at Riverdale, it will help with that, being a little bit more proactive for the time being until, but yeah.
What if you reversed and you did a high school first and then you did the additions? I mean, wouldn't that still, that'd give you extra capacity on the front end? And then whenever you did the additions, which, 'cause these schools, the older schools still need repair, they still need additions, stuff like that. It would still give you extra growth as you needed it as well.
The rezoning would be the thing that would need to be worked out.
Question mark.
Not only that, we have to start from ground zero with everything.
Unless we use Rockville's, but yes, we would be 6 to 7 months before we would have something ready to put on the street.
Are you saying using Rockville's design, Rockville High School's design?
And we still have to go for the 145 for bonding, for the bond. So either way, we still have to go to the bond market for this amount, same amount. And we don't have land where it's suited for this area, for the growth, because we will have to rezone everything, and it's not going to make sense in some areas.
What is the cost of, refresh my memory a little bit, what's the cost of the Riverdale addition, the total request? Was it 54?
The actual, let me pull that up.
I know I think it was more expensive than Oakland. I'm sorry.
56,305.
Less
Expensive than
because,
Riverdale.
yeah, I can't,
56,305.
56,305. All right, and then what was the one for
Oakland,
Smyrna? No, I got Oakland up here.
49.
39. 39.
Wow.
But you also have an additional, so Smyrna's not getting an auditorium, and Smyrna's is off to the side to where we wouldn't be moving. That's a huge cost, yes.
What's the cost?
Smyrna's off to the left of their building to where Oakland Riverdale's right in the middle of all their students.
Yeah. Still, you're looking at $156 million,
Correct.
157.
Number 14, now we have a little bit of good news.
Yeah, so the purchases of property, Blackman property. So the City of Murfreesboro has issued a will-serve letter to provide sewer to schools on the Beatty property. The will-serve letter is contingent upon certain amendments to the city's ordinances and normal requirements for sewer. The city has worked well with school system staff to get sewer to the Beatty property, and we appreciate all of their work to make that work and everything behind the scenes as well. But again, their city council does have to approve this. So the amendment to the city ordinance will require approximately 30 days. As previously reported, all test results have shown normal conditions for construction. The property is under 2 contracts. One contract is for 59.1 acres. The second is for the house in 2.29 acres. The parcel consisting of 59.1 acres is appraised for $4.5 million. The house and surrounding 2.29 acres have appraised for $730,000. Both contracts have been amended to provide for the purchase of the properties at the appraised prices. The purchase will be contingent upon approval of funding by the Rutherford County Commission, and the Beatty's agreed to extend the inspection period to May 15th. And I do want to add, I would not be alarmed. I don't expect the city council to have a unanimous vote on that, so don't be alarmed if you see some disagreement there.
As long as it passes.
Correct.
So is this on here for us to vote on moving forward with the purchase on Thursday?
Yes.
So do we want to move forward with the vote before their vote is even solidified on whether or not they're going to pass that?
I would, because if we don't, we're not going to get it before the commission before May, before they shut down all of their things.
They're
How
meeting
far out is their
Thursday
vote?
night.
So they will be meeting April 13th and May 6th. I'm thinking of the commission, May 16th. I don't know when city council's meeting. When is theirs? Do you have any?
This week.
That's what I
Okay.
They're meeting Thursday. They
Okay.
have their work session tomorrow at noon, and then they have their meeting on Thursday night.
We
Will
just,
they be voting on this on Thursday night then? Do you know?
I don't know, but I'll find out.
Okay.
I can find that out. Good question.
we'll just keep delaying it until they vote on it.
Yeah.
It's live streamed. Well, I want to thank Mayor McFarland for helping kind of orchestrate and try to get the city and county, eye to eye on this. I really appreciate him doing that.
Yes.
Save some money. Also, and I've had a couple of commissioners say, can you go ahead and just submit what you're going to ask for, because they want to crunch the numbers.
Agree. They have been.
Any other questions or comments? Number 15.
All right, number 15, financial report. Trey, Brian, you all want to do this Thursday? Or do you want to do it tonight? Totally up to you.
You're in charge.
We'll do it Thursday because I want to go over the salary study because that may take a little bit longer and give you time to ask questions for Thursday. So wanted to give just an overview, kind of our salary study. So our board worked on this as part of our retreat on March 9th and 10th. So now I'm hoping to be able to present this to you all officially and formally on April 20th is my target, because the board has to approve all salary schedules. And so our salary schedules, we normally pass them at the end of June, but that we just kind of have this is what we plan on doing. I would hope that we can pass them beforehand. We talked about the differences in maintenance of effort and how much we're getting from TISA, how that really shouldn't make a huge deterrent because it's kind of already known what funding we're going to get, and this is one of our top ones. So we are going to, first and foremost, because I know this is live streamed, I am going to show some numbers. These numbers are very much in draft form. So for anybody watching, this is not a final number. It's not a final proposal. I will have all of these cleaned up pretty soon. But there's a couple things I wanted to start with. First is with classified staff. So with classified staff, there's a couple things that I want to call everyone's attention to. So if we look at our classified staff, and I'm going to show you our current schedule as well while I have that up. Here is our current classified staff pay structure. And you will see that people can only earn 7 different grades or levels, if you will, and they go multiple years without any change. The next thing that I'll call out is that we have this part-time seasonal. We don't necessarily have anybody in that position that I could find. So that's there if we ever have part-time work that needs to be done. But the lowest paid group is our custodians, which we know we have struggled mightily with. They can start their career with us at $13.92. By the time they leave after 25 years, they only make $18.10 an hour. Our next round is our library assistants and our EAs and our food service. So they're kind of all there in together in level 2, and you'll see that starting as $15.03.
Oh, there's also, I'm not lead custodian for elementary schools.
Down here, is this lead custodian
That's
in other
in-
schools?
That's
Okay.
in that
Gotcha.
$15 as well.
So I wanted to show you that, to show you what it looks like, and then kind of go over where there's 2 big changes for classified that I'm very excited about. Here's our current structure again. It just looks different. So that grade, that minimum of $13.93, there's a couple main points that the salary study brought up that were a problem. One is your range spread, which means that when somebody starts with us at their minimum to when they max out, it's only 30%. Industry standard should be 50%. So somebody has the ability to make 50% throughout their career. The other one was the grade progression. So as you move from one position to another on this, there should be some type of even distribution. We know this 92.1 is way over the place because you have this salary of a basically minimum wage for part-time. But the rest of them, you will see, there's not really a rhyme or reason. Over the years, it's kind of like we just put people there kind of in the middle where it was, and that's where they landed. I mean, I'd like to give you a better answer, but that's kind of what it looks like over the years. So those 2 things are what classified what they looked at. So again, I'm going to show you this, and these are just numbers I'm working with right now. This is not the final one for all of our people watching it, because I know everybody will be excited about it, but I appreciate the board kind of spearheading this, and you guys deserve the credit for whatever we decide with, because you guys really spearheaded us to look at this. So here is our current proposed, let me get to classified. So you will see for classified, let me get on down here, because this is a bunch. The starting salary hourly rate is $15.40, which is above that minimum of $13.93 just starting off. And then we have a 5% raise built into that. So there's a couple things I want to show right off the beginning. One is that range spread. They still have that seasonal part-time position that we don't really fill, but they have it there just in case we need it. And then every range spread is 50%. And so someone can make up to 50% more throughout their career. As you move progressions, it is consistent of 5% until you get into more of the administrative position. I think there's one that hits to 10, and you start moving into some of your more specialized, like HVAC maintenance, those different types of things. The other part that is nice is as you move forward each year, you are progressing 1.6% in your salary, and I'll show you what that looks like. Off to the side, and I didn't just make these where everybody fell up. So where everybody falls is based on the salary study work. So these are all the different positions we have, and then they suggested where they should go. So that's what those different R numbers fall within. So if you go to that proposed pay plan again, you're gonna see that R101. So in this very first line, R101, would be our custodians, our food service workers, our general education EAs, ISS EAs, bus aid EAs. I'm not sure what a clock keeper is, but we apparently have someone somewhere, so I'm not sure what it is. So it is not our, it's not the timekeeper. I don't know what it is. Sorry, not what that is. But I'm not sure what it is. I have to go, and there's some of these things that I have to go in, and it may be a title that is rolled because, again, everything was DOS-based that they got, so it could be somebody that had this position who knows how many years ago, and we just don't have it anymore. So that is a huge increase for our custodians, going from beginning at $13.93 to $16.17. General ed EAs would be going from like $15.03 to $16.17. The one that the board asked us to look at was to pay our SPED EAs differently, and you'll see they are in R102, they are in that next column, and they would start at $16.98. And so I'm still in the middle of connecting all the different classifications that we have and making sure that I have all of these labeled in the correct one, and see if there's any calculations that we need to do differently. But the last part that I think is the most impressive is that there is a step increase every single year. And so again, like we looked at just a second ago, they could go 4 years or 6 years without ever getting a new bump in pay unless we did something district-wide, and they have additional step every single year. The one thing I would caution you to, and this is something that I'll do a huge presentation in April, and we started talking about it with some of our educator group today, and something that we want to make sure that we're fair and transparent with everyone. Currently, we only have 7 steps. We are moving to 25 steps. Even though someone may be on step 7 right now and they've worked for us for 25 years, it doesn't make financial or logistical sense for us to say, all right, you've been with us for 25 years, we're going to move you to the very end of the scale. So that would be somebody like, if we're saying a custodian that's making at the end of the scale right now is, $18.10, to move that exact same person, even though I'm sure everybody's well deserving everything we possibly can give, to move them to $24.26 per hour. And so that wouldn't make sense. It also doesn't give us any room for that person to grow. So I am working on a scale, and I don't know if I have the scale over here or not. I think I do. Yes. So these are all the calculations I've been working on. Let me go to classified. You will see that, and this is ugly, so I'm sorry, it's strictly just pure numbers. There's nothing great presentation about it. It's true work. That you will see that these are the percentage increases custodians are getting. If they were a brand new increase going from $13.92 to $16.17, they really increased 13% over what they would have made this year. And then as we move forward, There are a couple years, like I've moved it all the way to year 6, it was step for step. But once we got to year 7, I was moving somebody, if you were in year 8 and 9, then you were moving to step 8. If you were in year 10 and 11, then you moved to step 9, and just transferring that over so that we were rewarding people for more years that they've been with us, but there's still room at the end of the scale to be able to move forward.
That
So,
makes sense.
yeah. I know that's a little bit a little bit complicated, but
Well, they're
yeah.
going to, EAs that I've spoken with, they're going to be thrilled that they have been with $18
Yep.
is basically what you were going to tap out at. And you could have been with us for over 20 years. And that never made sense to me. So this is, I know it's rough, it's not hard numbers, but this is really, really good.
And so here would be general ed EAs. So you'll see again, they're going from 1503 to 1617 potentially. A brand new EA would increase 7%. But as it goes on, it rewards some of our more veteran people. And again, these scales didn't exist beforehand, so it's definitely rewarding them. And then special ed EAs had a big jump because right now they're paid as a general ed EA. And so it's taking their general ed EA and bumping them to a special education EA. So.
It rewards them now and still gives them room to grow.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. So any questions on classified, and then I can do certified Thursday night. Yep. It's been a lot, but thank you guys for entrusting us to kind of move forward
For
with
all
it.
the work that you all put in.
It's been fun, hasn't it, Brian? Yeah. Trey and I are meeting again on Thursday about it. So it's trying to take a payroll system that's from 1992 and try to make it match to a company that operates in the 21st century, and then trying to put it in a format that establishes the culture that we have of doing raises a certain way in Rutherford County, and also trying to move us into the future. It's been fun, but I like challenges.
It's been very
fun.
difficult for you, for all of us, to look at 3,000 employees, all the people that fall underneath each of our departments, to make sure that someone is not, 10 years ago was classified, and I'm going to use it as a clerk, and they're not a clerk. And if we just follow along with that same mindset, they could end up being in the wrong classification. So we're literally having to go in and look at that big spreadsheet, every single employee, and the company that's helped us has what they are now and what they propose them to be, but we've got to reconcile it to make sure that they're in the right class, not underclassed or way overclassed. Now, the vast majority are okay, but going through meeting with all of my department heads, we found a half a dozen or a dozen that would have, I want to say, fell through the cracks, that would have either been way under or way over. And like Dr. Sullivan, we're trying to make it fair.
Yep. And our salary study group has been amazing, but we're at the point now that it's truly, they only understand what they see in numbers. They don't understand the on-the-ground work of what we do every day. So that's what we're having to take the extra steps and do.
I'm so glad that we took the time to do this.
They've been,
this work.
yes.
It needed to have been done. I'm sorry that it was a mess. That's all I'm going to say. It was kind of a mess, but it's going to be good going forward, and we'll have a new template to work with.
Lots of growing pain cleanup.
That's okay. And I'm so glad that we are rewarding our people for staying. We were not rewarding our people for staying with us, and this is being taken care of. And I think that deserves quite a bit of kudos to all of you who have worked on this.
Only thing I'll add about certified is that we've talked about it a little bit, is that certified, and I'll get into this more on Thursday night, but we are moving, and again, these are just numbers I'm playing with. We are moving the scale from right now, it stops at year 21, I believe. And so you'll see it stops at year 21, and that's just basically what you make, and you'll see another couple years like you make exactly the same amount. And I'll get into this more again on Thursday, but you will see that we're moving the salary schedule all the way over to year 25, everybody, and there's a step every single year, so it's not the same amount. So, more to come.
I just want to say, Dr. Sullivan, when you took on this role, this was one of your big initiatives, is to do this salary study. So thank you so much for the hard work and to pushing through and even asking for more things to add it to the study so that we can have a holistic picture of what really our staff and teachers really deserve to get paid. So thank you so much for that hard work and diligence. I just want to say that, and I'm sure
you.
the rest of the staff will say the same thing.
Yep, so this was year 1, year 2 is the planning part, so we'll see how that goes too in the zoning, so that's year 2
Started,
goal.
so
Yep.
we've got something.
Number 16.
Anything from insurance, anything additional? I don't have anything additional for director's update either.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to join me tomorrow, I will be going to the Capitol right after the Title I planning meeting. There's 3 of them, and I was going to go to the Cedar.
Grove?
Yeah, Cedar Grove.
I'll take the second one.
Okay, perfect, awesome. So I'll be waking up early in the morning, 7:45 to be there. So I'll be going to that, and then afterwards, I'll be attending the Capitol meeting. There is going to be some legislation that's going to be talked about, so I'll be listening to that. Also, the House met today. I believe I was told today that they talked about the amending the 3rd grade retention law, which I don't even know if I talked about it, what they concluded or not. I know I sent an email to you and Dr. Chastain. Anyway, so let me get my notes real fast. I don't think I talked about it really quickly because we didn't meet last week. All right, so the House met last week, and there were, like I said originally when I was given an update about the 3rd grade retention promotion law, there were quite a few bills that were submitted to the General Assembly to amend. So what they decided is to use one bill and kind of roll up some pieces of those bills. So the bill that specifically talks about that and that was rolled up, it was HB 0437 and SB 0300. So the amendment 005323 is what is going to be rolled up into these 2 bills. So it's going to, first of all, allow a 3rd grader who scored on the 50th percentile on a state-approved assessment benchmark and on approaching on the TCAP LEA exam will be promoted, will be hopefully be able to promote to 4th grade. However, which is what I need to get clarity on because there may have to be an appeal for that. So parents may have to appeal for them to be promoted to the 4th grade, and that's what I've got to get clarity about the bill and the amendment. The other thing is that it also gives a little bit more guidance in regards to the appeal process. It allows for the school or a counselor or a teacher or a principal or some other administrator to file an appeal to a retention decision if a parent gives consent. So the key part there is that the parent has to give consent for someone to step in on behalf of the child.
Can I hit on one thing real quick? That is a concern. So just knowing our school system in general, we're going to have some parents who just don't have the capacity or availability to do that. And so if we're looking at what's best for the kid, that is a concern in those case-by-case basis. Tracking down the parent to provide that, especially, I mean, we have lots of kids who are in DCS custody. I mean, there's lots of just unique situations that I don't want a kid to be held back just because they don't have a parent who can advocate for them. So definite discussion on that.
And also language barrier as well. That's going to be another thing. But anyways, so the other thing is if a child, there's also given some guidance to a child if they're retained in any grade from K through 3rd, they're required to have tutoring services for that upcoming year. And the last thing is tutoring services. There's going to be funding for the tutoring. So there was a fiscal note that was added, which I believe I spoke about, $7 million. And that fund is going to go towards that. And that gives the Department of Education to procure 3 online tutoring providers so that the districts who are in need of tutoring services, those are the 3 providers that they're able to go to. So that really is the update on the third grade retention law. That's what got passed in the subcommittee last week, and it went to the full committee this week, and so we'll report back. But my sense of that, honestly, I think it got passed because there was a lot of support for that. So that's my hunch at this point. But anyways, if you want to come and join me at the Capitol, I will be there after Cedar Elementary School, the Title I planning meeting there. And I can provide another update after that.
Thank you, Ms. Rosales. Any general discussion?
I had some people reach out to me with some questions about some figures that had been talked about at some previous meetings. So I just kind of wanted to give some general idea to compare. Plainview has been brought up as a comparison to what we were paying for the Beatty property. I first want to say that when it comes to any land that we buy, trying to compare one piece of land in this area with another piece of land in a completely different area is almost impossible to do. Location plays a huge role in the value of property. The Beatty land we are purchasing at a total of about $5,230,000. The proposed budget for that building for the elementary school is about $57,400,000 for a total of $62,630,000. If you take the Plainview property and you adjust the acreage to match the acreage that we're buying at Beatty, that was about $1,105,020. And the building at that time, I believe, came in at $34,879,263 for a total of $35,984,283. So if we're going to compare things, comparing land to land, building to building is a more accurate picture. All of our land can come with potential issues in terms of different things that we're going to have to do to make the land adaptable, or things that the city may ask us to do, or a developer may ask us to do. We've had multiple properties that have had issues. I know Mr. Lee spoke about the dirt that they had to bring in for, was it Rocky Fork?
Dirty dirt.
Brown's Chapel.
Browns Chapel. So I was just asked by some constituents about those that were brought up, so I just kind of wanted to bring some clarity to some of those basic numbers.
So I think that's great. So the reason why I brought up those numbers about the Plainview property is because the property was bought at $10,000 per acre. I mean, $18,000 per acre for 150 acres. So during that time in Plainview, there were specific inspection reports that should have been done to raise some concerns about the infrastructure in regards to the road access, the traffic report, and the sewage. And unfortunately, that piece was not accurately done, and that's what caused to raise the site development, which is $15,476,226. That site development is what needed to be paid before we could even put down a single brick or cement or anything to actually build the construction. So if we're going to be looking at properties, it should be in our due diligence to understand what issues are we going to run into. Because if we understood what these issues were, we will have known that we will require a lot more money just to get the property ready in order to put down a building. So if you just look at the site development aspect of it, with the cost of the land, which was $2,700,000, that is $18,176,226. So if you take those figures and you divide that by 150, you will come out to $121,175 per acre. So the cost of the $18,000 per acre really cost more because we had to do more on the upfront before we could even lay down a piece of cement. So when we're talking about the Beatty, yes, we need to look at the land and look at the inspections to know what issues are we going to run into a piece of property. And that's why during the inspection period, just like if we were going to buy a residential, you look at an inspection from top to bottom, left and right, to determine if this piece of property is a good thing, because you've got to do your disclosures and you've got to do your inspection report to know if the construction is good, because you're not buying a house on auction where you get it as is. You're buying a house to know what is there for what you're getting your hands into, to determine if the numbers are even worth it to do. So when it came to the Beatty property, that's what we had to make sure that we did every single inspection. And my understanding that we did, which I had all these inspection period, all these different ones, it came back, oh, here we go. For the Beatty property, we did the Phase 1 environmental standard geological testing, we did the subsurface exploration, we did the preliminary traffic study, we served the letter to the sewer for the Murfreesboro city so that we can be a customer of the city. We also served the letter to the Tennessee Electric to work with them. We also did a property survey, we did a wetland survey, and a Phase 1 environmental. And every single one of these reports came back within reason. And it did not come out that we are going to be paying, hopefully, that amount of $15 million, $476,226 in order to get the land ready to build a next school. Because at the end of the day, we do have to be good stewards of our money and for our taxpayers to understand what piece of property we're getting. And that's the difference between the Beatty property and the Plainview property and the Beatty property. That's the difference between the two.
Madam Chair, I don't want to get into back and forth. I would just like to say, when we are comparing things, you can't compare a per price acre at 150 acres versus the 60 that we're purchasing. It's not a fair comparison. I'm not going to get into back and forth. I'm just stating there are things that have come up, and when we're going to compare things, it needs to be a fair and accurate comparison. There is no argument about inspections or what we've done on the Beatty property, so I'm not sure why there's an argument for that. We have done our due diligence on the Beatty property. Nobody's arguing against the Beatty property. I'm just bringing up facts that constituents had asked me about. That's it.
And I would just like to add real quick as well, so I just reached over to Ms. Sharp as well and said that we have to be very careful not to look back too much, because we are a new board and we have enough problems to solve on our own. And so I appreciate both sides of it, but I would just ask that when we're having these type of discussions, that we look at what is truly impacting us right now. But I definitely understand both sides.
Okay, I would like to talk about the MTSU STEM Expo last night. I'm sorry the staff isn't here. Some of them are here. Thank y'all so much. That was a fabulous event. I can see next year doubling in size. I don't know where we're going to go, but would you like to talk about that, Dr. Chastain?
Can you tell I'm excited to talk about the STEM Expo? I wanted to put in a little word on our staff's behalf. So the 3 science specialists took off this morning for a conference in Atlanta over science and STEM. So they are convening with their colleagues across the country, but tremendous amount of work. Stephanie Finley heads that up every year, and it has grown from just a middle school experience to there were elementary schools, there were high schools, there were structured setting students presenting, awesome. And I've got to talk to you about that. One of them ended up winning Best in Show. It was unbelievable. So fantastic opportunity for our community to see some of the amazing things our kids are doing.
Which one won Best in Show? I'm just curious.
I can't remember. Plants and Water.
It was the Plants and Water, the coffee.
The one by the ants.
The one by the ants that had. So we had a long discussion. This will not surprise anyone. We had a long discussion with her about whether or not I felt like coffee should have grown more of the plants. She disagreed, and her research showed that, but I thought coffee should have grown it better than water, but I lost. But Stephanie deserves a huge amount of credit, and our whole team, but even being over instruction, seeing it last night, because we had 2 years that COVID impacted it, how big it was this year, it was unbelievable. I mean, absolutely unbelievable.
And the amount of work each teacher puts in with those students to encourage them to participate. hats off. It was amazing.
It's just like our arts. Every year I see the art that they produce, and I don't know how they can do better. But came in earlier and went through the hallways, and the artwork is just phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. So I'm going to request, Dr. Sullivan, if we could have Stephanie Finley come in and the top winners come in so we can recognize
Love
them.
that. Yes, and
She's already planning on it for the next board.
Okay, yeah.
I regret that I was unable to attend.
yeah.
It sounds like.
It was great. Next time, maybe we should have someone come in and video it or something.
It was amazing. I loved it. So I would like for all of us, the school board members, for next year to be a judge. And I've already volunteered myself, so I hope other board members will do the same, because it'll be awesome if we can be a part of that.
Caleb, you were there. Would you like to?
It was great. I mean, I had a great time. My kids loved it. I brought the kids. They were excited. So it's something I think is good for everybody.
And it was packed. Once everyone got in there, I don't know how many, over 150.
Groups. How many did we have total? Was it 167? Does that sound right?
167. Wow, that's great.
Ms. Sharp, we did have, Grayson was there last night to take photos and things like that.
Oh, great. I must have.
Putting something together.
Yeah, I must have missed him. That's great. I look forward to
Did
seeing.
anybody else eat the ant cookies? Yes, I did. Thank
I did
goodness.
all three of them. They had chocolate chip, peanut butter, and oatmeal, and it was amazing. And you know, one particular project which did not get a prize, but in my heart of hearts, it was a good one. It could have gotten a prize if I was there, Judge. I'm just kidding. No. So, anyways, but it was really cool. It was these two girls from middle school who came up with the concept of how to properly lock the entire school building in the case of a intruder of some sort, or just an uninvited guest. And they actually wrote the code of that. And I was just blown away that they wrote code, because when I saw the thing with them slapping the card on the gadget, and I saw the code moving, I was like, oh my gosh, did you write that? And they were like, yes, we wrote that. I was like, oh my goodness. The fact that these kids are able to write code is mind-blowing.
We have lots of elementary kids that can write code too.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing to see that. And so it was good to see.
Do you remember our Blackman High School internet going down last year? Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll leave it at that.
Sounds good. Oh, was that? Well, it was a good project. Good idea.
Any further discussion?
I just want to say, I am Tennessee Vols through and through, but when I saw a certain object on display at Goodwill, I'm sorry, I'm going to put it right there, it did not cost a lot.
It's
but
perfect.
It said, Dr. Sullivan, Dr. Sullivan, Dr. Sullivan. This is Vandy. So I think it looks very handsome on
Thank you, Ms. Maxwell. Greatly appreciate it. I support it the first chance I could.
I got a question on the grant writer. Have we heard anything else on that update?
So we have posted it 2, 3. I think we're up to 3. Did we have 3 applicants total?
Oh, good, so we do have applicants.
We do have applicants
We do
now.
have
That is a
applicants.
step in the right direction.
Discussed it at our leadership meeting on Friday, so it is, I'll let you take it from here.
We'll be interviewing right after spring break so that we'll be able to move forward and hopefully hire somebody. We have 3 applicants, 2 from business type aspect and 1 teaching background. So there's a plus and a minus to both.
Great.
Awesome. No, there's nothing else. We are adjourned. Thank you so much for a great meeting.